Let's welcome Baroness Claire Fox to the show now, independent peer and director of the Academy of Ideas. Very good afternoon to you.
Hi.
Thank you for joining us. Now, I wanted you to talk about migrants. Did you want to have your say on just where we are on Israel and Gaza? Because I know you often talk about these issues as well.
Well, I think that there's a lot of internal rows going on in Israel. That's a sign, by the way, of a healthy democracy. So, fair enough. I am absolutely tearing my hair out, though, about this recognition of Palestine, just simply because it seems so performative to me. It's entirely it won't have one iota of difference on any Palestinian child or anyone hungry or anything else. So why are they doing it? And it seems entirely self-serving for the UK. And
well, for the UK Prime Minister.
As you've just discussed very fully, it is absolutely giving in to the demands of Hamas. And there is no such thing as recognising this state. There is no state of Palestine in a straightforward way. And self-determination of the Palestinian people should be determined by the Palestinian people, not international recognition for their own domestic audiences.
Yeah, very, very good point. You used the word performative there, and I suppose that's the best description as well of this new one-in, one-out migrant policy as well that was announced during the French summit with Emmanuel Macron a few weeks ago. Apparently, as of today, it comes into legal force, and then we're going to see it by the end of this week. So we've got 800 migrants who come over on boats roughly most weeks on average. We've got a 50% rise this year on what we had arriving by this time last year. So things aren't going so well on the smashing the gangs front. So you've got on average 800 migrants arriving on those boats once a week. 50 of those are going to be detained, we're told, as part of this pilot scheme. I don't know which 50 they choose. So 50 are detained, and then they're going to be deported back to France. Now, we don't know how long that will take. The human rights lawyers are going to be all over this, as we know. And in return for those 50, we're going to get another 50 people from France who are already asylum seekers, who apparently have been vetted, who have some link to this country. They've got a second cousin in Leicester, and they're going to be able to come to this country and no doubt then bring all of their extended family too, as often being the case. Seems to me we're going to end up with more people, and I'm not quite sure how we've got a deterrent here. What do you make of the scheme?
Again, listen, one thing I will say, and I don't often say this, I sort of feel sorry for the Labour government, because I think what's happening is, I think that somebody said, oh, God, we've got to do something about all those people protesting, and we've got to be seen to be doing something. So they pulled open a drawer of kind of daft policies from the past that everyone's rejected and said, why don't we try this one or this one or this one? And actually, they've announced quite a lot of policies this week, the visas and students. So every time you kind of turn the telly on or listen to the radio, there's a new anti-small boats, tackle the gangs policy. And each one of them is dafter than the last one. And none of us can take them seriously. So it's not just performative, but it's actually discrediting.
Yeah. Oh, we just roll our eyes. Yeah, we were discussing the extra £100 million for border security yesterday. That's at this end as opposed to the French. I mean, do I need to read the details? It's just going to be a load of nonsense, not going to make a difference. If any of this stuff worked, we wouldn't have seen a 50% increase in the last year.
Exactly. But you also made a very good point about your second cousin jibe. Actually, one of the things that's a real problem in relation to what then passes as a legitimate asylum seeker is it seems to me that, first of all, it's very unclear when they say they're going to, for example, get rid of the backlog and they're going to zoom through it quicker, whether that means they're tick-boxing people through. We know that the definitions of asylum seeker and refugee are outdated and don't fit the present model anyway, don't fit the present world. So you just can think, well, you can have got rid of the waiting list can go down because you've just said yes to everyone. We also have this ridiculous family reunification policy. Now, we all know that when it was designed originally, you can imagine a situation where if you were Jewish and fleeing Nazi persecution or fleeing from the Stalinist regimes, that, you might turn up and think, well, could I bring my wife or children and so on. Now we know that this is one of the most abused parts of the present asylum system. And as a consequence, what we're now saying is that all these people in France who say, I've got a second cousin, so wherever, right, can come over. And I always make the point, if this is kind of all about honouring the family, why it is that all those young men who arrive are so committed to their family that they've left their wives, sisters, mothers, and kids behind. I mean, you do think hardly an act of courage and bravery. Can't you put the women in the boats first? But they don't manage to do that. Yet somehow whenever it's discussed in the Lords, it drives me mad. People start saying, what about the families? What about the children? This is so cruel. We've got to have family reunification. Well, we know that as a consequence of which, there will be a large number of extended families who will then be seen as not a problem because they've got legitimate asylum
not
status.
a problem, and they're not in asylum hotels, so there won't be people protesting, but they'll be moved into this country. And what a surprise, they're asylum seekers. You haven't got that strong a family link here. Oh, and now they go to the top, of course, of the council housing list. And again, more and more families, British families of every ethnicity, who are sitting on this list, who are desperately trying to compete for, low rent housing and homes, they get pushed down the list once again. Those asylum children, by the way, also get priority at local schools. Yeah,
I mean, I have to say that some neighbours of mine who are, from long-standing migrant families are forever complaining, saying we can't get a council house because of all these foreigners turning up and jumping up the list, right? So those people who sort of see this as just through the prism of skin colour and ethnicity are slightly missing the point. There's lots of people who are long-standing people in this country who are perfectly reasonably in queues. I mean, when I say reasonably, we should be building more houses. That's a different question. But they're perfectly reasonably saying, OK, we're waiting our turn. We're going up the housing list. And then suddenly they go down 20 places, right? Why? Because emergency accommodation has been given out. And the rented sector is likely to take an absolute pounding.
And it's
we know this houses of multiple occupation are going to be brought into play.
And it's all
the hotels.
Exactly. And they think that we won't notice. And the key thing there is, of course, that hotel bill is really, really obvious, isn't it? And not so obvious when you're paying these long-term contracts, the like of Serco, who are then renting accommodation, but paying, the deposit, refurbishment, new cookers, everything on a 5-year lease. I mean, loads of families would love to get a 5-year lease. They can't get more than 6 months to a year. They'd love a 5-year lease, but they're also paying massively over the odds using our money. So people are struggling to pay higher rents because the competition goes up for fewer properties still available out of their taxed income, and those taxes are going to pay the extra super duper rent for these asylum seekers. And the thing is, it's on such a big scale now. People are noticing. What do you make of these demonstrations and these protests? Some have turned ugly, largely it seems actually, because of the arrival of the so-called anti-fascist, anti-racist mob with their balaclavas, bust in with their professional socialist worker placards. But ordinary men, women and children in local areas, whether it's in Barbican or Canary Wharf in London, whether it's the Bell and Epping, whether it's in Bournemouth or Norwich or anywhere else in the country, just saying, no, we don't want these people here. And particularly a lot of these protests have started after a rise in crime in local areas, but also very serious accusations levelled at some men who've been arrived in these boats, accused of, some charges even being brought of raping a 12-year-old girl. Now, people are innocent until proven guilty, but people have a right to express concern, don't they?
Absolutely. There was an interesting article, I think, in the Critic magazine the other day by one of the journalists who's been covering these demonstrations, and he made the point that for many people, we think of the Southport riots as the kind of starting point of this, but he made the point there was a very different atmosphere. There was a lot of people who were breaking the law in relation to the Southport riots, whereas these people who are protesting today want a change in law. In many ways, the mood is one of, it's not quite just all the ladies dressed in pink that we saw.
But it was a nice touch. It was sending a message, wasn't it? Non-threatening, just
hokey, singing "We'll Meet Again," all this sort of stuff. It was actually rather well done. But it's not all been like that. But I think there is a genuine feeling that people cannot wait for Parliament to act, and they're right to think that. They want to express how they feel, and they're going about it in the way that in a democracy you do, which is you have demonstrations, you make your feelings heard, and that's what they've done. And I think that the marginal trouble that we've seen on some of these demonstrations, I do think has not been helped by some of the rather peculiar policing decisions that have been made, and the fact that Antifa turn up in intimidating garb, with an obvious, they might say, oh, we're the anti-racists here. I think Tom's magazine Spike did a really good article on how there were people from all different immigrant backgrounds who are legal migrants who are going on the demos.
Yeah, who, funnily enough, all cared about their daughters. I mean, and it is a key issue.
Exactly.
Do you think
that's why the racism thing is so bad, just to say, because I just think saying that we're the anti-racists and we're opposed to you implies that everyone on the demos are racist, and they aren't.
Yeah, and people have actually got, there's one banner I saw, people saying, we're not far right, but we're not far wrong, which I thought was absolutely brilliant. Do you feel that we are hitting a tipping point? A lot of people, Nigel Farage got in trouble for saying he thought we were, and lots of people, a lot of our callers, a lot of my colleagues who talk just feel there's just a slight sort of change in the air and a feeling that people are going, seriously, OK, we gave the Labour lot a year. We didn't trust them in the first place on this. They're not going to deal with this. They're trying to have one over on us. They think we're idiots. They've contempt for us. They think we're just racist bigots for raising concerns about this. They're talking about or giving a bit more information now, Keir Starmer and Vivek Cooper, after Nigel Farage pressed them, about giving more information about, immigration status, ethnicity and the like. But fundamentally, we've got, a government, a civil service, a police and councils and everyone else who don't think this is a problem when the rest of us do.
I think there's so many aspects of why people are tearing their hair out. And partly it is that they feel that they're being gaslit by the government, who don't, who kind of look you in the eye and don't take seriously what you're saying, don't understand.
Nothing to see here.
I've got no instinctive feeling for why it is that people are going, I can't stand this, I can't stand the fare dodging. I can't.
Oh, don't.
No, but we can't go with the fact that the police are going to be more likely to policing your tweets than policing when you have a theft or something serious happen. All of these things. So there's one thing after another, and each and every time people do not feel that their concerns are being taken seriously. In fact, the opposite. One of the things that is most distressing at the moment is the way the government have identified that the problem people are like the protesters or those who complain. So the online safety bill, now an act, ends up taking down perfectly legitimate but difficult political conversations. We find out about a secret spying unit coming out of Whitehall that instead of identifying would-be jihadists and terrorists are now turning their eye to people who are on protests outside asylum hotels, etc., etc. So each and every time, the people they seem most scared about, and even this discussion about what information you can have and what you can't have, the police withholding information, all of this is about saying that the biggest problem facing this country is this sort of unruly mob of types of plebs who are feeling disgruntled. Your very point about that atmosphere, a rather febrile atmosphere, I mean, it does feel as though people have had enough, that is seen as the problem, and how you can manage and control that, including shaping narratives in a way that's actually openly deploying official misinformation, not misinformation from protesters, but the government planning how they let information be known to us.
Telling a police chief off for linking the riots last summer to migration.
That was extraordinary, wasn't it? Because one of the things about those riots was that what in fact that woman was saying, the police and crime commissioner was saying, can we look at more deeply what created these riots? And she said maybe the basis of it is disgruntlement about mass migration. The fact you can't say that, you got a phone call
from a Home Office minister
telling you not to, to take it down, is extraordinary.
Absolutely. But by the way,
they
remember, of course, the politicians never interfere in policing. Of course, they never do. I'm going to have to leave it there. But Baroness Claire Fox, as always, is why we have you on all the time, talking loads and loads of sense. There's a lot more of it about. I just wish you weren't an independent peer. I wish you were in government, independent peer, director of Academy Ideas, Claire Fox there. Thomas Sater, I mean, she just, Baroness Claire Fox just mentioned that, Spike had written about this, but you personally attended that, the Canary Wharf, the pink, the mums and daughters in their pink protest. And what did you make of what happened there?
No, I thought it was really fascinating. So we were actually reporting the weekend before, which was before the kind of mums and daughters protest took place, where it was just the first kind of organised demonstration that they had down there. And I think when people found out about this migrant hotel in Canary Wharf, there was a little bit of misunderstanding. People kind of think of Canary Wharf as the sort of, height of kind of anywheres, you know, people who are just there to work in high finance or whatever. Where that hotel is on the cusp when Canary Wharf turns into the Isle of Dogs, where you know, you turn the corner and you're around kind of low-rise council estates and even the old terraces which survived the regeneration. And so what you had there was
ordinary
a mix.
working class communities.
Absolutely, multiracial working class communities. I was talking to a mother of 5. All of her kids are half Moroccan. She's as infuriated about this migrant hotel as anyone else. And also, as Claire referenced, there were a lot of people there, more from the Canary Wharf side, shall we say, from the new living in the new skyscrapers or whatever, who are quite well-to-do legal migrants who are as sharing in their concerns about all of this. I spoke to a recent arrival from mainland China who said that they felt the pain of the community. They wanted to come out and show that this wasn't far right, and that in the same way that when they're coming back from their software job, they want to feel safe walking back. They want that same thing for the Isle of Dogs community that they now live amongst. So this is not the kind of caricature which has been presented with, I think, was the one thing.
And it's really good that people like you were out there. That's where your office is. I know. I mean, it's somewhere I did my first year in my local paper covering that area. I know that area really well. It's changed massively in God knows how many years since then. But it's again, there is a caricature of what's going on, and it's really important to have reporters like you on the ground for giving that accurate information. I was wanting to bring you some breaking news this morning. You just got to laugh. You just got to see the funny side on this, really. We're just talking about these illegal migrants being deported and then getting replacement. Just going to laugh. Rwanda is going to take 250 illegal migrants deported from the United States. The Rwandan authorities are reviewing an initial list of candidates provided from President Trump's mass removal programme, and they're going to accommodate those in accommodation which, very usefully already exists, because Britain spent an estimated £700 million providing it. Love to hear your thoughts on that one. Can you keep it clean enough for me to put it on air? Just sputter. Just beep yourself out.